People think emotional intelligence means staying calm all the time, but what if I told you it's actually about learning to feel more deeply without being ruled by what you feel? Society praises quick reactions, but the Stoics knew the fastest. Response is often the worst decision you'll ever make. We live in a world where most people are slaves to their emotions. The rare ones who master them, they become unstoppable. Welcome to StoicCraft, the place where ancient Stoic philosophy meets the challenges of modern life. Here, we don't just talk about wisdom. We learn how to live it, transforming everyday struggles into opportunities for clarity, strength, and self-mastery. In today's world where reactions are instant and emotions run high, the real strength lies in the ability to respond with reason. The person who can identify what they're feeling without being enslaved by it holds a kind of power that's rare. This is the heart of emotional intelligence, and the Stoics, those ancient architects of clarity and courage, understood this better than anyone. True emotional intelligence isn't about shutting your feelings down. It's about reshaping your relationship with them. It's being able to look at your anger without becoming it, to carry sorrow without letting it drag you under, to recognize the winds of emotion yet remain anchored. The Stoics didn't learn this in comfort. They learned it in hardship. They trained in the messy, unpredictable theater of real life, where every day brought challenges that tested their discipline. Their philosophy was simple: govern yourself before you try to govern the world. That's where our work begins, too. This isn't an escape from life, it's training for it. In the next 7 timeless disciplines, rooted in Stoic wisdom and tested through experience, you'll learn how to strengthen your emotional intelligence without falling into fakery or detachment. This is about real clarity, the kind that comes when you decide to rule your emotions instead of being ruled by them. Chapter 1. Recognize the first impulse. The Stoics taught that emotions don't control us without our consent. That first flash of anger, fear, or desire, what they called the propathia, the pre-emotion, is involuntary. What matters most is what you do next. Do you fuel the flame, or do you hold steady? Seneca said, "We are not harmed by the things themselves, but by the opinions we form about them." Between what happens and how you respond lies a gap, and in that gap is your power. Emotional intelligence begins in that space. It's not about what you feel first. It's about what you choose to do after. You have to train yourself to catch the spark before it becomes a fire. The moment before you act, that flicker of heat in your chest, the tightening in your stomach, is the moment to notice. That's where self-awareness lives. It may only last a second, but in that second you decide the shape of your future. When you feel triggered, don't charge forward blindly. Don't let the wave of the moment sweep you away. Pause. Step back. Treat that second as sacred, because it's the very point where your character is being carved. Ask yourself, what just happened? What thought came with this feeling? What did I assume in that instant? What story am I telling myself, and is it even true? This isn't overthinking, it's preparation. Every time you pause like this, you're building a habit, replacing raw reaction with thoughtful response, replacing volatility with clarity. Most anger isn't about the event, it's about the meaning we've attached to it, often imagined disrespect or a threat to our ego. Most fear isn't about the danger, it's about believing we can't handle it. Most envy isn't about what others have, it's about what we've neglected in ourselves. Emotions often arise automatically as echoes of memory or instinct, but they tighten their grip when we interpret them without question. To sharpen your emotional intelligence, you must become fluent in your own reactions. Map the terrain of your emotional life like a skilled explorer, charting an ancient, wild land. Identify the rivers of old experiences, the cliffs of past wounds. Use precise language. Instead of "I'm upset," say, "I feel disrespected because I expected appreciation and didn't get it." Specificity is power. Trace the origin of each feeling. Ask, is this rooted in something I've never healed? Is it fear inherited from someone else's behavior? Approach your emotions with curiosity, not shame. Often the emotion is old, what's new is only the mask it wears today. Recognizing this is like seeing the strings behind a puppet show. You stop being pulled. The first impulse is rarely your fault. It may come uninvited, shaped by your past, your biology, your upbringing. But what follows is your responsibility. The second thought, the next word, the tone of your voice, these are your brush strokes on the canvas of character. Here is where the real work begins, in the quiet battlefield between impulse and decision. Not in books or theories, but in those small, unglamorous moments where you choose a better response. The Stoic doesn't live in the first flash of emotion, but in what they do next. Not in the calm when life is easy, but in how they act when provoked. This discipline isn't detachment, it's command. It's not about avoiding the storm. It's about mastering yourself before the storm decides your fate. That's not avoidance, it's ascendance. It's the rarest kind of strength, mastery of yourself. One practical way to train this is to keep a reaction log. Each evening, write down one emotional moment from your day. What triggered it? What thoughts and feelings arose? How did you respond? Over time, patterns will begin to emerge. You'll start catching emotions earlier, giving yourself the space to respond by choice, not by reflex. Chapter 2. Separate emotion from identity. We often say things like, "I'm mad," as if anger defines who we are. The Stoics offered a different view. You may have anger, but you are not anger. You may feel jealousy, but you are not jealousy. This is a life-changing distinction that Marcus Aurelius wrote. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. He didn't say you'd never feel anything. He said your identity is not your passing emotions. Who you truly are is found in your reason, your virtue, and your choices, not in the moods that come. And this inner distance is essential. It's not about numbing your heart, it's about sharpening your mind. It's not disconnection, it's discernment. The Stoic doesn't banish emotion, they give it shape. They acknowledge it without surrendering control. You don't slam the door on feelings, you hear them out, learn from them, but refuse to. Let them lead you into self-betrayal. Imagine yourself as the calm center within a storm, aware, steady, and rooted. You watch your emotions the way a sailor watches the horizon, alert but unafraid. Dark clouds don't mean shipwreck. They mean preparation. You respect the warning, but you don't abandon the helm. This is how the Stoic stays composed in chaos, feeling sadness without being broken by it, joy without becoming reckless, grief without losing their grounding. Emotional intelligence means giving emotions their rightful place, no more, no less. When your identity is anchored in reason, emotions turn into information, not verdicts, signals, not sentences. They become guests, not rulers. You may serve them tea, but you don't let them rearrange your entire house. Through this discipline, you remain your own master, not because you feel less, but because you see more clearly. You feel deeply, but you act wisely. That balance, the integration of heart and mind, is the essence of Stoic strength. So, when strong emotion rises, speak to it directly. This is anger visiting me. I am not this anger. I will decide how to proceed. Repeat it if you must. Over time, you train your mind to let go of over-identifying with feelings. Chapter 3. Ask what is within your power. Most emotional storms begin when we try to control what we cannot. The Stoics called this the confusion of control, and it breeds endless frustration. Epictetus made it clear. Some things are up to us, and some are not. You can't control how people treat you. You can only control your interpretation. You can't control the outcome, but you can control your preparation. You can't stop the storm, but you can adjust your sails. Every time you shift your focus from what's outside your control to what's within, you reclaim your power. You stop trying to change people and start changing your response. You stop arguing with reality and start aligning with it. That single shift from obsessing over outcomes to mastering your actions transforms your emotional world. Anxiety loosens its grip. Resentment fades. Powerlessness turns into purpose. When you take ownership of your choices, you move from reaction to response. You stop needing the world to behave a certain way for you to feel at peace. You become the builder of your own steadiness. You realize peace was never someone else's to give. It's always been yours to create, brick by brick, action by action. The Stoic is not passive. They are precise. They guard their energy like treasure, refusing to pour it into things they can't change. They preserve their strength for the only battles worth fighting, the internal ones: impulse versus discipline, fear versus virtue, ego versus truth. They don't waste life on blame, because blame is loud but empty. Responsibility is quiet, but it transforms. They know endurance isn't forged in comfort, but in conscious effort. It's built in stillness, patience, and the unseen hours when no one is watching. They don't waste their strength trying to manipulate circumstances or control people. They've learned that true control isn't domination, it's alignment. Energy is too precious to spend on illusions of control, so they guard it as if it were a fire that must be kept alive with careful attention. They focus on what truly matters: their habits, mindset, discipline, words, tone, and integrity. These are the foundations of character, the places where their influence is real and lasting. Because they invest in what they can actually shape, they have more energy for meaningful action. They don't measure success by applause, but by alignment with their values. Their steadiness speaks louder than any speech. Their composure teaches more than lectures. Their restraint inspires more than orders. They know that over time, influence gained through integrity runs deeper and lasts longer than any influence gained by force. This is not weakness, it's wisdom. It's not retreat, it's strategy. And it's certainly not surrender, it's sovereignty. True emotional power is knowing where your energy belongs and having the courage to walk away from what drains it without return. It's understanding when to hold your fire and when to release it. It's the art of keeping your center steady, even when the world tries to spin you off balance. The Stoics mastered this, not by overpowering the world, but by commanding themselves. So when faced with an emotional challenge, they ask a simple question: what part of this is mine? Write the answer down. On the left side of a page, list what you cannot control. On the right, what you can. Then focus only on the right side. Chapter 4. Choose the right interpretation. Facts themselves don't cause emotion, our interpretation of those facts does. The Stoics understood this at the deepest level. A delay is not automatically an insult. A disagreement is not automatically disrespect. A closed door doesn't always mean rejection. A raised voice doesn't always mean threat. What matters most is the meaning you attach to events, because that meaning shapes your emotions, your behavior, and ultimately, your peace. Marcus Aurelius said, "If you are pained by any external thing, it is not this thing that disturbs you, but your judgment about it." This idea holds quiet revolutionary power. It asks you to stop blaming the world and instead examine the lens through which you view it. It doesn't tell you to stop feeling. It tells you to start seeing more clearly. Most people think they're responding to reality. In truth, they're responding to the story they've told themselves about reality. Emotional intelligence is slowing that process down, catching the story while it's being written and asking, is this helpful? Is this true? Is this fair? Your boss criticizes your work. You can see it as a personal attack or as feedback, even if delivered clumsily. If your pride is hurt, ask, is the issue the content of the criticism or my attachment to appearing flawless? Your partner withdraws during conflict. You can assume they don't care or consider they might need space to process. That's not weakness. That's maturity. This doesn't mean ignoring genuine harm. The Stoic doesn't pretend poison is medicine. They don't deny the reality of injury or betrayal, but they refuse to layer assumption on top of pain. They make a distinction between what happened and what they projected onto it, between fact and fear, between signal and noise. The Stoic knows that most suffering doesn't come from events. It comes from the meaning we've added to those events. A sharp remark may sting, but whether it becomes a scar depends on your framing. If you treat every unreturned call as rejection, every delay as disrespect, every silence as judgment, you've turned neutral moments into emotional firewood. You've made yourself flammable. The goal is not to sugarcoat reality or pretend everything is pleasant. Life isn't always comfortable, and Stoicism isn't a philosophy of comfort. The goal is to see things accurately, to remove the fog of insecurity and look through a sharpened lens. The Stoic doesn't wear rose-colored glasses, they wear clear ones. They don't distort reality to feel better. They adjust their perspective so they can face reality better. They don't pretend everything is fine. They learn how to be fine even when things aren't. That's real power. That's real courage. The Stoic aims to see reality as it is, not as fear imagines, not as ego demands, not as old wounds whisper. They hold their judgments up to the light, like a sculptor carefully inspecting marble before shaping it. They ask, is this true or is it a reflex? Is this real or just a habit? Is this mine or did I inherit it from someone else? They understand that most of our interpretations were shaped long before we even knew we were making them. Teachers. Criticism can echo a parent's disapproval. A partner's silence can awaken the sting of old abandonment. That's why the Stoic doesn't just see, they investigate. They peel back layers to uncover the original source of the story they're telling themselves. When you take control of your interpretation, you take control of your energy. You stop wasting emotional fuel on misread meanings. You no longer turn small inconveniences into full-blown catastrophes. You stop seeing every disagreement as a verdict on your worth, every setback as a plot against you. Instead, you learn to feel the sting without inventing the poison. You develop the ability to pause between what happened and what you decided. Means, this is the quiet, disciplined power the Stoics cultivated, the skill to translate life through a lens that's steady, fair, and free from distortion. It's a power that turns crisis into clarity, insult into insight, rejection into redirection. This isn't about denying life's hardships. It's about facing them with truth in one hand and reason in the other. When emotion rises, train yourself to ask, what else could this mean? Then go deeper. Write down 3 possible interpretations, not wild guesses, but thoughtful alternatives. What would someone with more patience see? What might a wiser version of you assume? What pressures or values might be driving the other person's behavior? This isn't self-deception, it's mental flexibility. It's giving yourself options instead of locking yourself into the first draft of your story. And options are freedom. For each interpretation, ask, does this make me clearer or more chaotic? Does it sharpen my perception or cloud it with ego? Then choose the one that makes you stronger, calmer, and more, just not the one that feeds your pride while poisoning your peace. Chapter 5. Delay the response, sharpen the result. In today's world, speed is glorified. The faster the reply, the stronger people assume your position is. But the Stoics saw this as a dangerous illusion. Haste often masquerades as confidence, when in reality it hides fear of silence, fear of uncertainty, fear of looking weak. When emotions surge, the instinct is to react instantly, defend yourself, lash out, post a rebuttal, or retreat into silence. But quick reactions rarely bring wisdom. They might soothe your ego for a moment, but they often deepen the wound. And more often than not, they lead to choices you won't respect in the light of day. Seneca advised, the greatest remedy for anger is delay. Why? Because time breaks the spell. It dissolves the drama, strips emotion of its exaggerated weight, and reveals the truth beneath it. Time turns the formless into something you can shape. It puts distance between you and the surge of feeling, giving space for clarity to emerge. What feels urgent right now might seem trivial in an hour. What feels personal now might later reveal itself as a misunderstanding. That betrayal might simply be a misread. That disrespect might have had nothing to do with you at all. Delay isn't weakness, it's wisdom in slow motion. It's strength with a steady hand. It's courage expressed not in force but in restraint. Delay gives your mind time to catch up with your emotion. It allows your values to speak before your pride takes over, before your old habits take the wheel, before the outdated version of you decides your present. When you've outgrown an old way of reacting, but let it seize control of your present, you hand over your power. That's why for the Stoic, to delay is not to avoid, it's not suppression, denial, or cowardice dressed as calm. It's not silence born of fear, but silence filled with awareness. It's not the absence of reaction, it's the deliberate cultivation of the right reaction. Delaying is a conscious refusal to surrender your agency to the urgency of the moment. You create space to breathe, space to recall your values, space to reconnect with your reason. It's the time to recalibrate your aim and review your options without the rush. It's the chance to compose your tone before your tone inflicts harm. You ask yourself, what do I want to build here? A bridge or a wall? A wound or a window? An echo of my worst self or reflection of my best? This is where emotional intelligence becomes visible, not in how quickly you react, but in how purposefully you pause. Not in the volume of your response, but in the wisdom it carries. In the pause, you sharpen the result. In the breath, you reclaim your strength. In the stillness, you draw the line between who you were and who you are becoming. In that space, philosophy becomes action. Virtue stops being theory. It becomes something lived under fire. The Stoic does not rush. They don't let urgency disguise itself as clarity. They treat time as a shield, a sacred delay between impulse and action. They step back, assess the terrain, and move with alignment, clarity, and virtue. They know what feels urgent is rarely what is most important. They refuse to be baited by chaos. They don't confuse speed with strength, nor silence with surrender. They understand that stillness is not the absence of motion. It's the presence of control. They recognize that lasting impact often comes from deliberate restraint. The strongest words are those spoken with discipline. The deepest impact comes not from rage, but from truth, carefully aimed. The arrow held longer flies straighter, and so it is with thought. The more carefully drawn, the truer the result. More time you give your mind, the more your response will align with your values, not your wounds. That's the mark of the Stoic, not suppressed emotion, but sanctified expression. When something triggers you, try this. Count to 10, not as procrastination, but as discipline. Each second becomes a small declaration. I will not be mastered by this moment. Or take 5 deep breaths, letting each inhale stretch awareness, each exhale release tension. If possible, sleep on it. A rested mind sees farther than a restless one. What feels like fire tonight may reveal itself as mere smoke in the morning. Let distance dissolve distortion. Let silence clear the fog. Let time cool the burn and reveal what truly matters underneath. Train the pause like a muscle. Flex it in low-stakes moments so it holds firm when the pressure is high. Use it before you send the email, before you speak the word, before you make the choice. Make it your default, not hesitation, but thoughtful delay. Not passivity, but patient power. The more you practice the pause, the more you discover its strength. That space between reaction and response is sacred. It's where character gathers itself before action. The pause doesn't slow your life. It sharpens it. It doesn't stall your progress. It protects your purpose. It's how the Stoic prepares their words like arrows, so they fly not wildly, but with precision. The pause is where ancient wisdom meets modern choice, and it changes everything. Chapter 6. Learn from the emotion, then let it go. Emotion is not the enemy, it's a messenger. It arrives to tell you something about your values, your boundaries, your fears, or your unmet needs. It's a signal, not a sentence. The Stoic doesn't dismiss emotion. They examine it the way a doctor studies a diagnosis, not to fixate on the discomfort, but to understand the cause and begin the cure. They don't flinch from what arises within. They study it, learn from it, and then having extracted the lesson, they release it like an exhale. Seneca said, "No man is more unhappy than he who never faces adversity, for he is not permitted to prove himself." Adversity brings emotion. So do mistakes, heartbreaks, and conflict? These moments pull us into feeling, and in that vulnerability, the soul is offered a chance to grow. The key is not to suppress feelings, but to make them useful, to harvest wisdom from discomfort, to treat pain not as a problem to hide, but as a teacher to heed. Ask yourself, am I angry because I was truly disrespected, or because I fear I am not respected at all? Am I sad because of what happened, or because of what I expected it to mean? Am I afraid of the loss itself, or of the emptiness I believe will follow? These are not easy questions, but they strip the emotion down to its message. They reveal the story beneath the sting. Once the lesson is learned, holding on to the emotion no longer serves you. The Stoic refuses to feed pain by replaying it endlessly. They know that turning an emotion over and over in your mind doesn't deepen wisdom, it distorts it. At some point, the emotion stops being informative and starts becoming corrosive. That's when they say, "I have learned what I needed. Now I release the rest." And in that act of release, there is strength. Letting go is not forgetfulness, it's freedom. It's the space where reflection ends and purposeful action begins. It clears the mind so it can return to what truly matters. It's the difference between carrying a scar and carrying an open wound. A scar is a testament to what you've survived. A wound left untreated holds you back from moving forward. The Stoic does not step into tomorrow still bleeding from yesterday. You don't have to feel pain forever to prove that you felt deeply. The depth of your experience is not measured by the length of your suffering. A long-lasting grief, anger, or sorrow does not automatically validate its importance. Lingering pain isn't always a sign of love. It's often the residue of unprocessed expectations. Enduring emotion isn't a sign of emotional depth. It's a sign of whether you choose to let go or to cling. Holding on longer doesn't mean you loved harder, cared more, or felt more sincerely. Sometimes it simply means you haven't yet granted yourself permission to move forward. That's not strength, it's captivity. It's mistaking torment for tribute, emotional imprisonment for devotion. It's the illusion that pain honors the past, when in reality it steals the present. It's wearing your wounds like medals when they should be invitations to heal. It's confusing self-inflicted suffering with loyalty to what hurt you, or to what never healed in the first place. Maturity lives in the balance between feeling and freedom, between allowing yourself to be moved and refusing to be owned. It's knowing how to acknowledge that something mattered without letting it dominate your days. It's the difference between opening your heart and letting it be taken hostage, between being emotionally honest and being emotionally responsible. It's being fully present in an emotion while still remembering that it is impermanent. It's the blend of tenderness and feeling, and boldness and detachment. To feel is human. To feel and then release, that is Stoic. The Stoic feels what must be felt, learns what must be learned, and then moves forward unburdened, not because they are cold, but because they are clear, not because they are indifferent, but because they are intentional. They don't suppress their emotions, but neither do they submit to them. They don't slam the door on their feelings, but they do know when it's time to walk through and not look back. They carry the lesson, not the weight. This isn't emotional avoidance. It's emotional intelligence in action. Avoidance runs from feeling. Intelligence runs with it for a while, listens, learns, and then lets it rest. Avoidance pretends nothing matters. Intelligence knows what matters and chooses how to carry it. It's the art of tending to what arises without building a permanent home in it. It's the skill of holding space for your emotions without handing over the keys to your mind. It's learning to be a guest in your grief, not a lifelong resident. To allow sorrow to pass through, but not to take root in your bones. To give the storm permission to enter without letting it tear down the walls of your self-respect. It's the strength to sit with an emotion without allowing it to sit on your throne. To know that while emotion is powerful, it is not sovereign. It is human, but it is not ultimate. It's the clarity to see that pain may visit, but it does not deserve ownership. Pain can inform you, but it doesn't have to define you. You can honor what you feel without letting it swallow your entire identity. It's the ability to give emotion its voice, but not your voice. To let it speak without allowing it to speak for you. You can hear its message without turning it into the main story you tell the world. You can listen without letting it lead. You can understand its purpose without letting it dictate your path. The Stoic consults emotion the way a wise host might. Treat a guest politely, attentively, and then, when the conversation is over, walks it to the door. You learn from it without letting it rewrite your character. You integrate the lesson without adopting the mood. You keep your compass steady even when the sky grows dark. You bow to the truth of what it came to teach, and then, like a gracious host, you thank it for the message and let it leave. Not too soon, not too late, but precisely when your deeper self knows the work is done. That is the Stoic art, to feel fully, act justly, and move forward carrying both wisdom and peace. Not detached, not consumed, but clear-eyed, open-hearted, and anchored in virtue. A simple practice. Name, learn, release. Name it clearly and specifically. Don't settle for vague labels like, I'm upset. Say, I feel disappointed, or I feel rejected, or I feel envy. Naming the emotion precisely is your first act of power. It transforms a fog of feeling into something defined, and therefore manageable. By naming it, you step back from it. You observe it rather than obey it. Learn from it. Ask what this emotion is trying to teach you. What value did it reveal? What expectation was violated? What does it tell you about? What you truly care about, what you fear, or where you need to grow. Let the emotion become a mirror, not a mask. Sometimes the lesson is obvious. Other times it's buried under layers of reaction. Be patient. Ask, What did this emotion want to protect? What did it awaken in me that I've been ignoring? Release it. Letting go isn't suppression. It's a conscious choice to stop carrying what no longer serves your growth. Imagine setting it down like a heavy stone you've carried far enough. Feel the release in your shoulders, your chest, your breath. Picture yourself walking forward lighter and clearer. And if the emotion comes back, repeat the process. Name it, learn from it, release it again. Do it as many times as needed until you feel present again, until you remember that emotion may knock, but you choose whether it stays. Chapter 7. Let virtue rule the emotion. The Stoics never sought to be emotionless. They sought to be virtuous. The goal wasn't to eliminate emotion, but to transform it into fuel for moral excellence. They asked one central question: does this action align with courage, wisdom, justice, and temperance? These virtues weren't lofty ideas for them, they were daily disciplines. Emotion was raw material, like clay, to be shaped by reason. Emotional intelligence reaches its highest form when your choices are led by principle, not passion, when your inner compass is guided not by the gusts of the moment, but by the solid ground of character. When the storm rises within you, but you still choose the path of virtue, that's where emotional mastery is born. You might feel the urge to lash out, but if justice leads, you speak calmly, not to avoid conflict, but to preserve dignity, both yours and theirs. You may feel the sting of disrespect or the sharp heat of insult, but if justice is your guide, you correct without cruelty, and you speak truth without venom. You remain anchored in fairness even when offense shakes you. You may feel fear, but if courage leads, you act anyway, not because fear disappears, but because your mission is greater than your emotion. Fear may ripple on the surface, but courage draws from the depths. You take the next step, not because you're fearless, but because you refuse to let fear decide for you. That is Stoic courage, acting through fear, not in its absence. You may feel greed, but if temperance leads, you hold back, not because you lack desire, but because you will not be ruled by it. You choose contentment over consumption, purpose over indulgence. You understand that the true cost of excess isn't only what it drains from your resources, it's what it takes from your inner stability. And yes, you may sometimes feel buried under responsibility, pressure, or uncertainty. But if wisdom is in the driver's seat, you won't spiral. You won't scatter your energy in 10 directions. You'll take the next right step steady, deliberate, and grounded. You'll return to what matters. You'll remember that clarity doesn't come from frantic movement, but from focused action. You'll let virtue steer and let emotion ride. As a passenger, you'll listen to it, consult it, learn from it, but you won't hand it the map. You won't let it touch the controls or decide your course. The Stoic navigates not by impulse, but by values. They treat emotion the way a wise general treats a scout gathering information, evaluating the terrain, but acting only in alignment with the greater strategy. Emotion can alert you to danger, to injustice, or to need, but it cannot define your mission. It can inform, but it must never dictate. Passion may flare, but it is principle that determines the direction. Temper may run hot, but virtue runs deep. When in doubt, the Stoic returns to the inner compass, not the mood of the moment, but the enduring ideal. Not the passing impulse, but the timeless standard. Not the fleeting urge, but the tested truth. The goal is never to feel less, but to feel rightly. To experience deeply, yet act wisely. To hold the emotion in your hands and still choose your action from a place of clarity. You act not from impulse, but intention, so that even your enemies can't help but respect the steadiness of your response. In conflict, you remain anchored. Under pressure, you remain whole. Shaken, yet steady. The Stoic is no emotionless machine. They are a master of self. Mastery is not suppression, but direction. Not coldness, but composure. It's knowing how to use the flame without letting it burn you. It's passion guided by principle, and the heart ruled by honored. When facing a difficult emotion, pause and ask with sincerity, what virtue is being called for here? Wisdom, justice, courage, temperance? Don't rush. Let the question dig beneath the surface reaction, then write it down. There is power in putting virtue into ink. It transforms a passing thought into a fixed direction. Next, define the action that virtue would demand: specific, deliberate, and aligned. Let that plan not the emotional surge guide your behavior. Let it anchor your words, shape your tone, and steady your decisions. Make this a habit, and your emotions will stop being your master and become your messenger. Your feelings will still arrive, but they will no longer control you. Your virtues will lead, and in their leadership, you'll find strength, steadiness, and clarity. Emotional intelligence is no modern invention. It's an ancient fire, older than empires, forged in the hardships of real life. The Stoics kept it alive not through speeches, but through daily actions. They felt anger, but acted without injustice. They felt grief, but did not collapse. They knew fear, but still walked the path of virtue. They didn't aim to escape emotion. They sought to elevate it, to wield it like a well-forged blade, defending when needed, never striking without cause. To increase your emotional intelligence is not to run from feeling. It's to meet it with discipline, to welcome it at the door, hear its message, and then choose a response rooted in virtue. It's to extract clarity from chaos, to remain centered when the world shakes, to watch the wave rise inside you, and refuse to be swept away. In a world of constant noise and fragile egos, your ability to remain composed will be rare. In a culture that rewards instant reaction, your thoughtful response will stand out. Your choice of response will earn respect, and more than that, it will offer shelter. Your emotional intelligence will not only serve you, it will serve others. It will make you the calm in the storm, the steady voice when others shout, the anchor when others drift. You will lead not by force, but by example, by the quiet power of restraint and the presence of principle. The Stoics didn't learn in times of ease, they learned in the fire. Marcus Aurelius wrote Meditations in the chaos of war. Seneca penned wisdom while surviving the treacheries of Nero's court. Epictetus taught mental freedom while bearing the scars of slavery. They proved that emotional intelligence is not a luxury, it's a survival skill. Not weakness, but supreme strength. And now that same fire is yours to carry. Stoke it with reflection. Guard it with virtue. Sharpen it with study. Strengthen it with patience. Feed it each time you choose principle over impulse, clarity over confusion, virtue over vanity. Let it light your path and the paths of those who walk beside you. Let your life become a lantern of calm, a vessel of wisdom, a channel for reason. The work begins and continues with you. And every time you return to these principles, no matter how often you stumble, you rekindle the flame. You reignite ancient strength. In doing so, you carry forward the fire of the Stoics. Let it burn bright. If this message resonates with you, leave a comment answering this. Which emotion do you most need to master right now, and what virtue will you use to guide it? And if you're ready to build unshakable emotional strength, explore our full playlist on emotional intelligence and Stoic discipline. You'll find the link right here.